On April 22, 2025, the tranquil beauty of Pahalgam, a popular tourist destination in the Indian-administered region of Kashmir, was shattered by a horrific act of terrorism. 25 tourists, both domestic and foreign, along with their local guide, were brutally killed in an attack that sent shockwaves across India and the world. India swiftly pointed the finger at Pakistan, alleging the involvement of Pakistan-based terrorist groups operating with the support of elements within the Pakistani establishment. Pakistan vehemently denied any involvement in the attack, calling the accusations baseless and provocative. The Pahalgam attack triggered a rapid deterioration in the already fragile India-Pakistan relations. India, enraged by the loss of innocent lives, launched a furious diplomatic offensive, demanding that Pakistan take concrete action against the perpetrators of the attack. India also withdrew from the Indus Water Treaty, a vital agreement governing the sharing of water resources between the two countries. The move was widely seen as a way for India to exert pressure on Pakistan. Pakistan responded by threatening to exit other bilateral agreements, including the 1972 Simla Agreement that established the framework for peaceful resolution of disputes between the two countries. Both nations scaled back their diplomatic missions and expelled diplomats, further escalating tensions. The world watched with growing concern as the war of words between the nuclear-armed neighbors threatened to spiral into a full-blown military confrontation. On May 7, 2025, after days of mounting diplomatic pressure and public outrage, India launched Operation Sindoor. This operation involved coordinated missile strikes on 9 suspected terrorist training camps located in Pakistan-administered Kashmir and mainland Pakistan.
India claimed that these strikes were targeted at terrorist infrastructure and were intended to prevent further attacks on Indian soil. The Indian government stated that the strikes were carried out with pinpoint accuracy, minimizing civilian casualties and collateral damage. However, Pakistan disputed these claims, stating that the strikes resulted in the deaths of 31 civilians, including 2 children. Pakistan condemned the strikes as an act of war and vowed to respond forcefully at a time and place of its choosing.
The international community reacted with a mixture of concern and apprehension. While some countries expressed understanding for India's right to self-defense, others urged restraint and called for dialogue to de-escalate the situation. The United States, a key ally of both India and Pakistan, found itself in a particularly delicate position, urging both sides to exercise restraint and avoid further escalation. The missile strikes on May 7 marked a dangerous turning point in the conflict, pushing the two nuclear-armed neighbors to the brink of war. What began as a tit-for-tat exchange quickly escalated into a full-blown military confrontation as both sides unleashed their air, land, and naval forces.
On May 8, Pakistan claimed to have shot down 2 Indian fighter jets that crossed the line of control, the de facto border dividing the disputed region of Kashmir. India confirmed the loss of 1 MiG-21 fighter jet and the capture of its pilot by Pakistani forces. However, India maintained that its aircraft were on a routine patrol mission and did not violate Pakistani airspace.
As tensions reached fever pitch, both sides resorted to heavy artillery shelling across the LOC and the international border, targeting military positions as well as civilian areas. The relentless bombardment caused widespread damage and displacement, forcing thousands of terrified villagers to flee their homes in search of safety. The India-Pakistan conflict exacted a heavy toll on civilian populations on both sides of the border. The relentless shelling and airstrikes caused widespread death, injury, and displacement, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in their wake. Hospitals were overwhelmed with casualties, and essential supplies like food, water, and medicine ran dangerously low.
In the villages along the LOC, residents spent days and nights huddled in makeshift bunkers, terrified by the deafening roar of artillery fire and the constant fear of sudden death. Schools, hospitals, and other vital infrastructure were damaged or destroyed, disrupting essential services and adding to the misery of the affected populations. The human cost of the conflict extended beyond the immediate casualties of war. The breakdown of essential services, the disruption of economic activity, and the psychological trauma inflicted on millions took a heavy toll on the social fabric of both nations.
Section 5. Military Strategies and Technology, a Comparative Analysis. The 2025 India-Pakistan conflict showcased the military capabilities and doctrines of both nations.
India, with its larger and more technologically advanced military, relied on a combination of air power, missile strikes, and artillery bombardments to target Pakistani military installations and suspected terrorist camps. India also deployed its navy to blockade Pakistani ports, aiming to cripple its economy and restrict its ability to wage war. Pakistan, facing a numerically superior adversary, adopted a more asymmetric strategy, relying on a mix of conventional and unconventional warfare tactics. Pakistan employed its air force to carry out retaliatory strikes against Indian military targets and utilized its arsenal of ballistic and cruise missiles to deter a full-scale Indian invasion.
The conflict also highlighted the growing importance of drone technology in modern warfare. Both sides deployed armed drones for reconnaissance and targeted strikes against enemy positions, demonstrating the strategic significance of unmanned aerial vehicles in future conflicts. Section 6. The World Watches International Reactions and Fears of Nuclear War. The outbreak of hostilities between India and Pakistan sent shockwaves through the international community. World leaders expressed grave concern over the escalation of violence and the risk of a nuclear confrontation between the two arch-rivals.
The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting, calling for an immediate ceasefire and a return to dialogue. The United States, caught in the middle of a diplomatic tightrope walk, urged both sides to exercise restraint and initiated a flurry of diplomatic efforts to prevent the crisis from spiraling out of control. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio engaged in shuttle diplomacy, speaking with the leaders of both countries and urging them to de-escalate the situation.
The specter of nuclear war loomed large over the conflict, casting a long shadow over the entire region. The fact that both India and Pakistan possess nuclear weapons added a chilling dimension to the conflict, raising the stakes and fueling fears of a catastrophic escalation that could have devastating consequences for South Asia and the world. Section 7. A Troubled History. The India-Pakistan Conflict. The 2025 conflict was the latest chapter in the long and bitter rivalry between India and Pakistan. The two countries have been locked in a territorial dispute over Kashmir ever since their independence from British rule in 1947. The two nations have fought three major wars over Kashmir in 1947, 1965, and 1971, and have been engaged in numerous military standoffs and skirmishes over the years. The Kashmir conflict is deeply intertwined with issues of national identity, religious tensions, and historical grievances, making it one of the world's most intractable disputes. The presence of a large Muslim-majority population in Indian-administered Kashmir has fueled separatist sentiments and provided fertile ground for militant groups, some of whom have been accused of receiving support from Pakistan. Despite numerous attempts at bilateral dialogue and international mediation, the Kashmir issue has defied resolution, casting a long shadow over relations between India and Pakistan. The 2025 conflict was a stark reminder of the volatile nature of the dispute and the ever-present risk of a catastrophic escalation. While both India and Pakistan publicly maintained their willingness to engage in dialogue, deep-seated mistrust and decades of animosity posed significant challenges to finding a lasting solution. The involvement of third-party mediators, such as the United States or the United Nations, was seen as crucial in bridging the trust deficit and facilitating meaningful negotiations. S5. Media Group, Major Powers Call for Ceasefire, International Leaders in Conference, China-Russia, U.S. Diplomatic Meeting at Distribute_equally. The United States, China, Russia, and other major powers called for an immediate ceasefire and the initiation of dialogue to address the underlying causes of the conflict. The United Nations stepped up its diplomatic efforts, with the UN Secretary-General offering to mediate between the two sides. The international community also explored the possibility of creating a contact group comprising key stakeholders to facilitate dialogue and explore confidence-building measures. Narrator, Media Group, diplomatic pressure on India and Pakistan, international mediation efforts, diplomatic talks during conflict at Distribute_equally. Section 8, Seeking Peace, Diplomatic Avenues and International Mediation. As the conflict raged on, international pressure mounted on both India and Pakistan to seek a peaceful resolution to the crisis. Section 9, The Uncertain Future, Challenges and Hopes for Resolution. As the guns fell silent and the dust settled, both India and Pakistan found themselves at a crossroads. The conflict had exacted a heavy toll on both nations, resulting in significant loss of life, economic damage, and a deepening of mistrust. The specter of nuclear war, while averted for now, served as a stark reminder of the high stakes involved and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. The path to peace remains fraught with challenges. Decades of animosity, deep-seated mistrust, and the complex nature of the Kashmir dispute continue to pose formidable obstacles to reconciliation. Moreover, the presence of hawkish elements on both sides, eager to exploit nationalist sentiments for political gain, risks derailing any fragile peace process. Despite these challenges, the desire for peace remains strong among the people of both India and Pakistan. Civil society organizations, peace activists, and ordinary citizens have